हेलो एंड वेलकम एवरीवन, दिस इज प्रोफेसर सिद्धार्थ सुराना। आई होप यू गाइस आर डूइंग गुड। और मैं तो हमेशा मस्त ही रहता हूँ। वेलकम टू एपिसोड नंबर 3 ऑफ MCQ सीजन 2। अरे लिसन, माय अपकमिंग शेड्यूल इज वेरी बिजी। आई हैव गॉट अ लॉट ऑफ कमिटमेंट्स, वर्क कमिटमेंट्स दैट आई हैव टू ऑनर। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, प्लीज स्टॉप आस्किंग सर व्हेन विल द हैंड रिटन बुक कम। मुझे भी उतनी ही जल्दी है उसको रिलीज करने की। बार बार पूछना बंद कर दो। इट इंक्रीजेस माय प्रेशर। आई एम वर्किंग वेरी हार्ड ऑन इट एंड जब अवेलेबल होगा मैं चिल्ला चिल्ला के अनाउंस करूंगा, सो डोंट वरी। सेकेंडली, बिकॉज ऑफ माई अपकमिंग बिजी शेड्यूल, ये एपिसोड 3 और एपिसोड 2 सेम डे रिकॉर्ड हुए। नहीं तो किसी किसी को लगा अरे गरीब के पास पैसा नहीं है, सेम कपड़े में रिकॉर्डिंग कर रहे हैं। अरे ऐसा नहीं है, मतलब गरीब है, पैसा कम है, लेकिन कपड़ा है और बहुत अच्छा है और बहुत प्रोफेशनल कपड़ा है। बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली बिकॉज ऑफ द लॉकडाउन एंड स्पेंडिंग मोर देन अ ईयर एट होम, जो वेट इंक्रीज हुआ है ना, कोरोना से ज्यादा मैं फैला हूं। एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट वो फॉर्मल क्लोथ्स थोड़े फिट नहीं हो रहे। आई एम वर्किंग हार्ड ऑन दैट ऑल्सो, ताकि मेरे क्लोथ्स मेरे को वापस से फिट हो। मगर ये रिकॉर्डिंग सेम डे हो रही है इसलिए, नहीं तो एटलीस्ट टी शर्ट तो मैं चेंज कर ही लेता। एंड ऑल दैट इज इरेलेवेंट फॉर यू फॉर द टाइम बीइंग। लेट अस गो अहेड। हम लोगों ने लास्ट चैप्टर SEZ खत्म किया था, so now we'll go ahead to our chapter, that is assessment of business trust. And very quickly, which of the following income is not exempt in the hands of REIT? business trust को exemption मिलता है, कौन सा? which incomes? interest from SPV, dividend from SPV, rent, rental income of real estate asset owned by it. तीन income exempt होती है. what is not exempt? interest received from company, this is not SPV, so it is not exempt, or it is not exempt, so this mostly is our answer. Let's read but the others also. Interest from SPV is exempt, rent is also exempt, so all of them cannot be the answer. Answer is going to be A. Rent received from own building by REIT business trust and then distributed to investors will be taxable in the hands of, rent will be taxable in the hands of the investor. Three incomes where business trust does not pay. See, everything else business trust pays tax. What are the three incomes? Interest from SPV, dividend from SPV, and rent. So these three have to be taxable for the unit holder, but dividend income has become taxable from this year. It is an amendment that will be taxable only if the SPV has opted for 115BAA. Otherwise, it will become a tax-free transaction. State whether the following statement is true or false. Units of REIT shall be mandatorily listed. This is also an amendment in the chapter. So last year the rule was that SEBI ने बोला था it has to be compulsorily listed, but now SEBI has removed that rigidity and they can be listed or unlisted. Therefore the given statement is false. Question number 4. Short term capital gain on sale of property is rupees 10 lakh earned by business trust. This income is distributed to unit holders. What is the rate of tax payable by unit holders? See, unit holders are going to pay tax only on three incomes: interest from SPV, rent, and dividend from SPV from the current year only if the company is opted for 115BAA. Everything else will be taxable for the business trust. 111A available, 112 available, everything else at MMR. So for the unit holder, they are asking unit holder, it is going to be exempt. Interest of rupees 1,50,000 is received by business trust from government authority, so it is not SPV. Rate of tax payable by business trust will be MMR. Except 111A, 112, everything will go in MMR. Mr. Kalu, a resident, purchased units of business trust 7/7/17, 3 lakh rupees, and sold on 11/11/20 for 9 lakh rupees, and no other income. Is tax payable? They are asking tax, not the income, tax. So listen. Selling price is 9 lakh, cost price is 3 lakh, therefore capital gain is 6 lakh. If you calculate tax, you can make a lot of mistakes. This is not as easy as it appears to be. Come here, please. Sale consideration 9 lakh. Cost of acquisition 3 lakh. This 6 lakh is 112A, long-term capital gain. Observe, please, 2017. July and 2020 November, that is more than 36 months, and therefore it is long term. And when they have not specified, obviously we will assume they are listed, and units of business trust are also covered in the capital gain of 112A. This is LTCG under 112A. And now when we calculate tax under 112A, your brain must be saying first 1 lakh 0, balance 10%. So your brain must be probably giving you 50,000 plus 4%, 52. Wrong, because what you have again forgotten is we will first utilize the unexhausted basic exemption limit. So from 6 lakh we utilize 250, we are left with 350, where because this 350 is 112A income, first 1 lakh 0%, balance will be taxable at 10%, 25,000 plus 4%. The only correct answer is 26. Anything other than this is wrong. Remember, first 1 lakh 0 and also unexhausted basic exemption limit because resident individual is allowed to utilize. REIT received rental income on own properties of 1 crore 5 lakh and distributed the same to unit holders. What is the rate of tax payable by the unit holder? For rental income which is exempt for REIT, unit holder will pay tax. For interest and dividend, there is special rate, but only for non-resident. Resident, everything normal rate. And this is rent, whether resident or non-resident, both will pay tax at normal rate. Business trust paid 5 lakh as interest to unit holders received from SPV. TDS required to be deducted by business trust is dash in case of resident and dash in case of non-resident. Whenever we are paying to resident, we can deduct at a flat rate of 10%. So no problem. But for non-resident, there is special rate. What is the rate of interest? Rate of tax on interest income? 5%, subject to surcharge HEC, and whatever is the rate of tax is also going to be the rate of TDS. Accordingly, 10% for resident and 5 plus SC plus HEC for non-resident. Statement of income distributed by business trust to unit holders has to be furnished by this. I am just telling you, has to be furnished by 30th of June. The unit holder should know that what is my proportion of income, so that you know how much to offer under interest, dividend and rent respectively, what rate you have to offer them to. Resident, everything normal rate, but for non-resident there are special rates prescribed. Dividend received from a company which is not SPV by business trust and further distributed to unit holder. Remember, interest and dividend will be exempt for business trust only if SPV. Now other than SPV, business trust will pay tax, and SPV dividend unit holder only if opted for 115BAA. So for the business trust it will be taxable, and once this is paid for the unit holder, it is going to be exempt. Taxable for business trust, exempt for unit holder. Short term capital gain other than the sale of listed shares would be subjected to, other than listed shares which go in 111A, everything else will go in maximum marginal rate. Business trust holds 51% equity share capital in SPV. SPV is a company regulated under Companies Act. It paid dividend of 12 lakh to business trust. Tax treatment for business trust is C. Even if DDT is removed, SPV dividend is going to be exempt. It will be taxable for unit holder only if the SPV has opted for 115BAA. So non-SPV will be taxable here for business trust. SPV will be exempt. TDS at dash in case of distribution to resident unit holder of rental income from real estate. Whenever you pay anything to resident, the TDS rate is always going to be 10%. You have to use your brain, if any, only when it comes to non-resident. TDS at that in case of distribution of non-resident unit holder rental income from real estate. See, interest for non-resident 5%, dividend from non-resident 10%. These are special rates. Dividend is also an amendment in 115A. But as far as rent is concerned, it is going to be applicable rates, and so is going to be the TDS. Capital gain on disposal of assets by business trust is distributed to unit holder. Such capital gain is because business trust will pay tax, everything else is going to be exempt. Short term capital gain on 1 crore on sale of developmental properties owned by business trust, and same is distributed to unit holder. Once again, is this interest from SPV, rent or dividend from SPV? No, everything else taxable for business trust, and therefore for the unit holder it is going to be exempt. Dividend received by a real estate investment trust from special purpose vehicle, distributed to unit holder. Exempt for both unconditionally? No. Business trust it is exempt. Unit holder will get exemption for subject to certain condition. Always taxable for REIT? No. Always taxable for unit holder? No. Unit holder will pay tax only if SPV has opted for 115BAA. REIT received rental income of 2 crore from real estate property directly owned by it. Short term capital gain 1 crore on sale of developmental properties, and interest of 3 crore from Gamma Limited, an Indian company in which it holds controlling interest, that is 80%. Which of the following is correct? So 2 crore is rent, unit holder will pay tax. SPV interest, unit holder only for dividend you have to check 115BAA, otherwise unit holder, and only 1 crore business trust will pay. All this will help you to answer the question. All are taxable for REIT? No, please. REIT enjoys pass-through status in respect of above income, and hence incomes are taxable for unit holder? No, not at all. We have already decided 3 and 2 are taxable for unit holder, and 1 crore is taxable for business trust. REIT enjoys pass-through status in respect of interest, and hence income is taxable for unit holder. Rent and STCG are taxable for REIT. Again wrong. Only STCG. REIT enjoys pass-through in respect of interest and rental income, and hence taxable for unit holders, correct? And short-term capital gain will be taxable in the hands of REIT. Only correct option, option D. Rate of income distribution tax, both business trust and investment fund, no need to pay any income distribution tax. See, REIT has distributed 2 crore to its unit holder, which comprises of rental income from real estate property directly held. So this is going to be taxable for unit holder because exempt for business trust. Interest income from special purpose vehicle, also for unit holder because exempt for business trust. Dividend income other than SPV, business trust will pay tax. Only SPV unit holder, that also if SPV has opted for 115BEE. Capital gain also taxable for business trust. So 2 incomes for unit holder, 2 for business trust. In this case, SPV is an Indian company in which REIT holds 100%. Excellent. Anyways, controlling interest after 50 also. Which of the following statements relating to taxability of the above incomes are correct? Please be clear, these are not your options. Some statements are given. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 statements are given and you have to choose which is the correct statement. You have to choose a combination. Let's read one by one. All above incomes are taxable for REIT. Wrong statement. So obviously with this we can strike off option A. Only income referred to in 1 and 2 are taxable for REIT, 3 and 4 are taxable for unit holders. In fact, it is the other way around. 1 and 2 are taxable for unit holder, 3 and 4 are taxable for REIT. So where is 2? Option B also gone. Only income referred to 1 and 2 are taxable for REIT. 4 is taxable for unit holder and 3 is exempt. Totally wrong, absolutely wrong, completely wrong, automatically cancels. Option C also. We are left only with D, which includes 4 and 5. We should just verify whether statement 4 and 5 are correct. Only income referred to in 3 and 4 are taxable for REIT. Yes, taxable for business trust. Income in 1 and 2 is taxable for unit holder. So this statement is correct. So is the option, that is the only option left if you use your brain, if you have one. When you are doing this sum in exam, you don't have to read further. Here I am going to read the other options for you, decide what is to be done. मैं सब करेगा, don't worry. मैं करेगा, लेकिन अगर आपको आपके एग्जाम में टाइम बचाना है, आपको पता चल गया बाकी 3 रॉन्ग है, यही बचा, यही राइट है, टॉपिक इज ओवर. बट देख लेते हैं. लेट्स सी. टैक्स इज डिडक्टेबल बाय REIT फ्रॉम इनकम referred to in 1 and 2. Obviously, if the incomes are taxable for unit holder, then there is going to be TDS by REIT. Anyways, 4 and 5 are in the same option. Tax is deductible by REIT for 3 and 4. Why? They are not taxable for the unit holder. So you will not deduct. His 6 is not there, or 6 was there with 2. Anyways, they are wrong only. Tax is deductible only from 4. No, from 3 and 4. Both they have to. Or from 1 and 2, which is taxable for unit holder. No tax is deductible. That is also wrong because 1 and 2 you have to deduct. Accordingly, we have already decided. हमारा option D right है. Let's go ahead. Dividend received by REIT from a company other than SPV distributed to unit holders. Other than SPV is always going to be taxable for the REIT. Always for the REIT. Now we have case study based MCQs where they have given a story and on the story they have asked 5 questions. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Case study based, case scenario based. Story, 5 MCQs. Story, 5 MCQs. Sometimes they have 3 MCQs, 2 MCQs, that kind of stories also. Let's see. No problem. Nothing great in this. Business trust registered under SEBI regulations gives particulars of its income. Interest income from Z Limited, 10 lakh. Now we don't know whether it is SPV or no. If it is SPV, then unit holder will pay tax. Otherwise, business trust. And dividend income, same thing. We don't know. Short-term capital gain on sale of listed shares, STT POED at the time of purchase as well as sale. This for sure, definitely taxable for the business trust. Short-term capital gain sale of developmental property, this also business trust. Obviously, this will go in 111A, but this will go in MMR. Interest received from investment in unlisted debentures of real estate company. This definitely business trust, that also at MMR. We don't even have to check because we are definitely sure. This is not given the name of a company and therefore it cannot be SPV in multiple companies. Rental income from directly owned real estate. This rental income will be taxable for the unit holder. Z Limited is an Indian company in which business trust holds 100% of the shareholding. That means Z Limited is SPV. And it has opted for the new regime 115BAA. That means that the dividend income as well as, see, interest income anyways was going to be taxable for the unit holder. Dividend income, we were not sure. But if the company has opted for 115BAA, then both incomes will be taxable for the unit holder. So altogether 3 incomes for unit holder, 2 incomes for business trust. Assume that the business trust has distributed entire 48 lakh. Let's see the total. 10 plus 5, 15. 15 and 4, 19, 19 and 8, 27 and 128 and 20, 48 lakh fully distributed to unit holder in previous year 2021. X is a resident unit holder, X is resident holding 100 units. So obviously he'll get in the proportion of 100 units. Y is a non-resident holder holding 500 units. So X resident 100, X resident 100, Y non-resident 500, and the total number of units are 5000. When total number is 5000, that means I can safely say that Y is 10% unit holder and X is 2% unit holder. So accordingly they will get of all the incomes 10% and 2% respectively, because entire 48 lakh is distributed. My dear friends, ये स्टोरी था, ये क्वेश्चन नहीं था. अ क्वेश्चन अभी आएगा और एक ट्रिक देता हूं, केस स्टडी बेस्ड एमसीक्यू. इफ यू वांट टू डू गुड, really good, there is a trick. It will work 99% cases. Sometimes it will not work 99% cases. To hell with the story. Not altogether, obviously. Do one thing. First come and directly read the question. In respect of interest income for Z Limited. Means the question is only asking you about this. I'm not interested in what is happening over here, unless it is relevant for any of the options given. And based on the question, decide what data you want to consume from the para. Ignore the unnecessary data. That can work to save time 99% cases. But anyways, our students are going to score minimum 25 up to 30 marks. Imagine 30 marks in CA final out of 100, irrespective of whom you have studied from, whether from me or anybody else. 30 marks I am giving you. Rest you can manage. Imagine. With the kind of questions we are practicing, anyways, we are preparing for that. But let's see. That's a style that I give you. In respect of component of interest income for Z Limited, that means we are talking about 10 lakh rupees distributed by business trust to unit holders X and Y. So have we clearly decided unit holder will pay tax? It is easy for us. Now we have already decided the tax treatment of everything. No tax is deductible since income is not taxable for unit holder. Rubbish, because income is taxable for unit holder. Resident normal rate, non-resident 5% under 115A. And TDS will be resident 10% for everything. Non-resident exactly same as the tax rate, 5 plus SC plus HEC. No SC because less than 1 crore or less than 50 lakh. Only 5.2% including HEC. Tax deductible at 5% on distributed to X and 5.2 to Y. No. For X, it will be 10%. Yes, I know. Post-COVID period, it will become 7.5% because from 14th May, there is a reduction. But unless the question mentions about that reduction of TDS due to COVID, for resident only there is the reduction. For non-resident, it is constantly going to be 5.2 only. But definitely it won't come to 5%. 10 will become 7.5. Tax is deductible at 10% from X and 5.2 from Y. You can proportionately calculate if 10 lakh is the income, X is 2%, so 20,000 and Y is 10%. So 1 lakh. So amounts are given correctly and this is also your correct option. 5% is again wrong. I am not even reading further to waste time unnecessarily. In respect of short-term capital gain of 4 lakh on sale of listed shares of Indian companies and 8 lakh on developmental properties. So we are talking about these two incomes. Capital gain will be taxable for business trust. I have already told you the rates also. 4 lakh at 111A, that's 15%, plus HEC will make it 15.6, and that other capital gain 8 lakh will be taxable at MMR. So business trust at 15.6 and 31.2, no, because 42.744. Liable full, no, 111A benefit will be available. Pass through, so no need to pay tax, again wrong. Liable to pay tax at 15.6, that's for this, and 42.744 respectively. Excellent. Dividend component of Z Limited. Now Z Limited means this income we are talking about 5 lakh taxable for unit holder. We have decided that also. For resident at normal rates, non-resident 115A, and because the company has opted for 115BAA, would be subjected to DDT. Rubbish. Exempt in the hands of business trust, consequently would be subject to tax in the hands of unit holders as the company has opted. This appears to be correct, but we'll keep it on hold. Let's completely eliminate the other two also. Would be exempt from distribution tax and taxable for business trust. No. SPV cannot be taxable for business trust. Exempt from distribution tax and not taxable for both. Wrong. If the company had not opted for 115BAA, then this would have been our option. But company has opted and therefore B will be our option. Interest received by business trust from investment in unlisted debentures of real estate company. This is not SPV, and anything else will be subjected to business trust at maximum marginal rate 42.744. And the rental component of income from real estate and distributed to unit holder will be taxable at normal rates for both X and Y. Business trust exempt, taxable for unit holder. We already decided, no? We have already decided. Rental income taxable for unit holder at normal rate for both. But TDS will be resident 10%, non-resident applicable rates. Let's see. Tax in the hands of business trust? No. Tax in the hands of business trust again? No. Tax in the hands of unit holder. Till here it is right. X at 10% and Y at rates in force. Wait. The rate of TDS may be 10. But tax rate is not 10. Tax rate is not 10. This full statement is correct except this one thing. Because for non-resident rates in force is also right. But the rate of tax for resident and non-resident both normal. Only TDS is 10%. Subject to tax in the hands of unit holder X and Y. Okay, that's correct. Rate they are not saying only. Business trust has to deduct 10% from X who is resident and rates in force from Y who is non-resident. This is not the rate of tax. This is TDS. If they would have said TDS 10%, then it's D option and that is the right answer. Okay. So tax rate will be normal. Tax rate will be normal. TDS rate will be 10%. Non-resident is earning dividend income from business trust. We know that now there is an amendment under section 115A. It will be taxable at 10%. New section. And the section is old, provision is new. Capital gain arising for unit holder at the time of. When does capital gain arise? Not at the time of exchange, but at the time of actual transfer of units. In computation of capital gain for unit holder at the time of transfer, selling price of units, what will be the cost of acquisition? Whatever amount you had paid for acquiring your shares, cost of shares will become cost of the units. Tax rate on capital gain for unit holder at the time of actual transfer. What will be the tax rates? Till last year it was compulsorily listed and therefore short term capital gain 111, long term 112. But now SEBI is allowing unlisted units also and therefore unlisted means no STT. Means 111A, 112A will not be available and thus it can go to normal rates for short term, which is the normal slabs or depending upon company firm, normal rates. Flat slab or flat depending upon type of assessee. And for long term capital gain 112, both A and B depending upon whether they are listed or unlisted, because now a business trust is going to have or is going to be allowed to have even unlisted units. Unlisted units are also going to be allowed, so we cannot stick rigidly to one thing. Now both rates are going to be applicable, stock market rates and other rates. That's your chapter, assessment of business trust. Let's go ahead. Next chapter, taxation of investment funds. If in any year investment fund, similar structure, only PGBP will be taxable, everything else will be taxable for the unit holder. And loss, the system changed last year, so business loss will remain here, every other loss will be passed through, but current year first set off will be taken by investment fund. After set off remaining losses, business will remain in the investment fund and the other losses to unit holder if held for more than 12 months. And accumulated losses on 31st March 19 will be given away to unit holders directly for the remaining period, if you remember the chapter. If in any year there is business loss at investment fund level, business loss, then carry forward will always be taken by investment fund. Business related anything, investment fund. TDS at that dash needs to be deducted by investment fund on income credited to resident unit holder except PGBP. PGBP taxable for investment fund, other income taxable for unit holder. For resident we can have ad hoc rate of 10%. For non-resident it is going to be the applicable rate on the respective income. And yes, for resident we know post COVID it will reduce, but if the option does not talk about it, you also ignore the same. Investment fund, which is a partnership firm, so the rate that will apply is the rate of partnership firm, has earned PGBP of 5 crore. What will be the tax? Will it be exempt? No. PGBP will be taxable for the fund and the rate of partnership for the fund and rate of partnership will apply. So basic tax will be 30%. Income more than 1 crore and therefore 12% surcharge and 4% HEC. So when you apply 30% plus compulsory 12% surcharge plus compulsory 4% HEC, let me just verify what is going to be your 500 lakhs into 30% plus 12% plus 4%. 174, 72,000. Yes, I do have it. Thank God it is there. 1 crore 74 lakh 72,000. You can check it on your calculator also. Which of the following is, I am not getting my calculator, and doing calculation on mobile is a little difficult. Which of the following is taxable for investment fund? All incomes, no. All incomes except PGBP, absolutely no. Only PGBP is taxable for investment fund. Everything else is taxable for unit holder. Interest income received by investment fund will be dash. Investment fund will not pay tax. So, exempt and taxable for the investor. Exempt for investment fund, taxable for the unit holder, because only PGBP is taxable for the investment. Rate of income distribution tax, both business trust and investment fund. No, in fact, DDT, IDT is removed for everybody else also now. Unit holders of investment fund shall pay tax on which income? Except PGBP, everything, and pass through means whether distributed or not distributed. All incomes except PGBP, whether they are distributed or not distributed. Investment fund income for AY 21-22 comprised of the following components: business profit 5 crore, capital loss 3 crore. All the unit holders have held for more than 12 months. So, they will get the share of the respective loss. What would be the treatment? First of all, please understand, if set off was allowed, then only 2 crore profit will remain. But you should know set off rule that capital loss cannot be adjusted against any other income. Capital loss only against capital gain, that also long term loss only against long term gain. Accordingly, 5 crore is business income directly taxable for the investment fund because no set off, but the 3 crore of loss will be given to the unit holder, obviously in proportion of their holding. Let's see what our options are, and I am going to teach you something very important here. Business income of 5 crore is taxable in the hands of investment fund. This statement here is correct. Capital loss has to be carried forward by investment fund. No, earlier it was the rule, but now all losses will be carried forward by unit holder except business loss, which will remain with investment fund. Business income of 5 crore is taxable for unit holder. It is wrong here itself. Here itself it is wrong. Business income of 5 crore is taxable for investment fund. Correct. Capital loss of 3 crore cannot be carried forward. Again wrong. Business income of 5 crore is taxable for investment fund. Correct. Capital loss of 3 crore can be carried forward only by unit holders in the proportion of holding. Always read all 4 options and finally decide what's your correct answer. Mr. B has been holding 5% units in investment fund, 10% units in REIT and 7.5% units in securitization trust for more than 15 months. Relevant only for investment fund if there is loss other than business, so that I can get the benefit of that loss in proportion of my holding. Following incomes were earned by them. So, this is income of the fund, of the business trust, of the securitization trust. In this, don't forget, I am holding over here only 5%, over here only 10% and over here only 7.5%. So, if at all I get any of this, I get only in my proportion. Hello? That also I will consider only those incomes which are taxable for the investor, for the unit holder. For example, in investment fund, I don't have to consider this. This is not taxable. Let's go fund by fund. Let's do one thing. Let's decide and discuss which fund how much will be taxable. Okay. If we talk about investment fund, PGBP is not taxable for unit holder. Only fund has to pay tax. And as far as the other income is concerned, it will be given as pass through. So these incomes can go at 5% ratio to the investor. If we talk about REIT, other income, REIT will pay tax, but these incomes are exempt for REIT, that is rental income and interest from SPV. So investor has to pay tax, but only on his proportion. And as far as securitization trust is concerned, every income is taxable for the unit holder and therefore full, but 7.5% because only my proportion. What would be the total income of Mr. B for this previous year 2021 apart from share in the above income? So this and this, he only has long term capital gain. See, if you carefully observe, in securitization trust it's a profit. REIT, I have 2 incomes as unit holder in my proportion profit. In investment fund, 2 lakh is profit, 1250 is loss. From that 1250 my share I will get, and that being long term loss, you should understand that long term loss can be adjusted against long term gain. So what I will do is, this income in my share, this income in my share, this income in my share, and this loss in my share I will adjust against my long term capital gain. Accordingly, I will get my total income. Let's see. Rental income from REIT, I have taken that in our proportion. I have gone in the order of incomes of the question. You have the textbook with you, you can check. SPV interest, I have taken in 10% proportion. PGBP, here I will not take. Here there is no PGBP. Here I will take, but again in my proportion. Other income, 5% proportion, it is not there here. And long-term loss, I will take in proportion of my share, that is 5%. And that, this is not from the investment fund, this is my personal income. But my LTCL I can adjust. And accordingly, after adjusting all this, I get final three amounts from here. And when aggregated, that comes to 397,402, and I think it comes to 442,500. 442, is it there in the options? 442,500 is going to be the total income of this person from the investment fund. That will be your total income. And finally, we have case study based question number 10 and 11. They are based on case study. So listen, story is given and you have to answer the next two questions. XYZ Limited created an investment fund, gives you the following particulars in respect of income or loss for previous year 2021. Business income, that will be taxable for the investment fund. Capital gain, taxable for unit holder. IFOS, taxable for unit holder. MNP Associates LLP also created investment fund too, gives you following particulars in respect of its income and loss. Business loss will be taken by investment fund. Long-term capital loss will be handed over to the unit holder, and income from other sources is a profit. Normally we hand it over to unit holder, but before doing that, our first task is we will first take set off. Once we take set off, because when it comes to carry forward, no, we decide business loss investment fund, other loss unit holder. When it comes to carry forward, set off will always be done by business trust. Set off will always be done by investment fund. Set off will be done by investment fund. After doing set off, we check about the remaining losses, and for this it requires you to have knowledge of set off chapter also. Business loss can be adjusted against IFOS, except salary and casual winnings you can adjust. Accordingly, we are left with 10 lakh business loss, 0 IFOS, 0. So we just are left with two losses, 10 lakh business loss, 10 lakh capital loss. Business loss who will carry forward? Investment fund, and capital loss unit holder if held for more than 12 months. Both investment fund have 50 unit holders, each having 1 unit. So you can divide by 50. So you will get the loss per unit holder over here or the income per unit holder here. Each unit holder of both trusts have carried for more than 1 year. So excellent. They will get their respective share. Of the above income, investment fund have not paid anything. That doesn't matter, because whether distributed or not distributed. And during the previous year 18-19, total turnover of XYZ Limited exceeded rupees 400 crore. Ignore 115BAA. That means this company is in old regime, and 400 crore means if at all you calculate tax for this company, you calculate at 30%. Ignore 115BAA. Now comes the question. This was data. With respect to income of MNP Associates, they are talking about this invest. So they are basically two independent stories, but they merged फोर्सफुली. जबरदस्ती का दो क्वेश्चन को मर्ज किया, जबरदस्ती केस स्टडी, कोई लेना देना नहीं, मतलब एक क्वेश्चन ऊपर वाली स्टोरी पे, एक क्वेश्चन नीचे वाली स्टोरी पे, बट जबरदस्ती मर्ज कर रहा है, लेना नहीं देना नहीं एक दूसरे से, जबरदस्ती. ठीक है, हमको क्या करने का, हमको तो खाली सॉल्व करने का. विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू इनकम ऑफ एमएनपी, what will be, we have already decided. Income of 10 lakh will be taxable and loss of 30 lakh will be allowed at the fund level. No, please, we have already decided. Loss of 10 lakh will be carried forward at the fund level, which is the business loss. 10 lakh in respect of capital gain, and loss of 10 lakh, which is under the head capital gain, shall be carried forward at the unit holder. So business loss of 10 lakh at the fund level and capital loss of 10 lakh at the unit holder level, because IFOS has been removed by taking set off of 10 lakh business loss. This is the correct option. 20 lakh carried forward at the fund level, not at all. And 10 lakh income from IFOS will be taxable. Actually, in the printed answer, the answer D is printed, which is wrong, because yes, if there was, supposingly there was no loss, then this 10 lakh would have been taxable for the unit holder. But this 10 lakh is eliminated by virtue of the loss. And because the 10 lakh is eliminated, now there cannot be any tax for the unit holder. Business loss of 10 lakh, that's right, will be allowed to be carried forward at fund level. Capital loss of 10 lakh. So the losses amounts are right. 10 lakh business loss, because 10 is already adjusted against IFOS. 10 lakh capital loss. Business loss for fund, capital loss for unit holder, that is correct. but IFOS is removed and therefore this is wrong. In the printed solution it is D, but the correct answer is B, because IFOS is already eliminated. We don't have any IFOS. I hope you are understanding, because we have already taken set off of our business loss, because of which we are left with only 10 lakh. Otherwise we had 20, no? Even if we choose this as the correct option, how can it be 10? We have 20. If it has become 10, that means there is no IFOS, and that's the only error. So you have to rectify it. B is the correct answer. Unit holders of XYZ will be liable to tax in respect of the following income. Which income? Except business income, can I say unit holder will pay tax on this? And if we divide by 50, we'll get, I think, 28,000. 14 lakh divided by 50, we'll get 140 divided by 5, 28,000, which will again be proportionately divided into capital gain and 20,000 and 8,000, I think, capital gain and IFOS. Let's see. Non-taxability, wrong. Whether received or not received, pass through. Each unit holder will be liable to pay tax in respect of 28,000, being his share of income under capital gain and other sources. That's the right answer. Liable to pay tax in respect of 20 only capital gain, wrong. Liable to pay tax 38 in respect of entire income, no. Only capital gain and IFOS, total 140, divide by per unit holder, we get 28,000 as we divide by 50, 11. B is the correct answer. B is the only correct answer. That was your chapter, assessment of investment fund. Let us go ahead. Next chapter, chapter number 10, that is your chapter called dividend stripping. If bonus units are allotted, applicable provision will be, by the way, 94(7) is gone now, because there is no exempt dividend. 94(7) existed till exempt dividend. Huge number of questions of dividend are eliminated from here also. So from here, from special rate, from DDT, and then also we have got 150 more questions. I hope you understand. Okay. 94, it is applicable only to units. Loss shall be ignored. How much? In 94(8), we are going to fully ignore the loss that we incur on our original unit. And what will we do with the loss? It will become cost of acquisition of our bonus unit. Loss on original will become cost of bonus. Loss on original will become cost of bonus. 94(8) units have to be purchased within dash months prior to the record date. Within how many months they have to be purchased prior to the record date? 3 months purchase and sold within a period of 9 months. Purchase within 3 months and sell within 9 months. Purchase has to be done within a period of 3 months, sale within 9 months. Then the loss on original will be ignored and it will become cost of acquisition of whatever remaining bonus units we have with us. That was your chapter called. Now you go and check in last year's textbook how many questions we had on dividend and bonus stripping. Just go and check then. Once you check that, you will realize that how many questions are removed from the book, and despite so many questions being removed from the book, on an overall basis, we still have more questions compared to last year. अरे ये क्या हो गया यार? I got disappeared. Okay, let's go ahead. I think we are only, it's a very big chapter. We have about 70 questions. But now that we are only at 38 minutes, today I have time, so I am recording multiple episodes and chapters. In the coming days, I may not be having that much time, but I will fulfill my commitment. I am a man of my words. I committed, I will do it, means I will do it. Likewise, I have committed a handwritten book. I did not commit that I will give it to you by May 21 attempt. I am trying my best that I am able to give it to the May 21 students. And I can tell you this much, that supposingly it comes a little late also, but it comes before your exam, no? Then one day before your exam, the entire subject you will be able to revise twice, in fact, with that handwritten book. So anyways, it is going to be useful even if you get the book on the last day. At least those students who have studied from me, it is going to be very useful for you. I hope I am very clear about this. Okay. So let's go ahead. Next chapter, assessment of partnership firm. Rate of tax applicable to the firm for the assessment year 21-22. No change, 30%. Which of the following income is not exempt? Share of income of member from HUF, that's exempt. They are asking not exempt. Share of income of a partner from firm, that is also exempt because the firm has already paid tax. Salary received by a partner from firm is not exempt because firm will take deduction. To that extent, it will be taxable. Surcharge applicable to partnership firm if the income is 80 lakh. 80 lakh, no surcharge. Individuals have 10%, but firm only after 1 crore, only one rate, 12%. Surcharge applicable to partnership firm if income exceeds 1 crore, only one rate, rather than 5, 10, 15, 20 or 100 crore, only one rate. Conditions required to be fulfilled so that partnership firm can be assessed as a firm. Section 184, partnership deed in writing. Deed should contain manner of sharing profit, basis and copy of deed should be given. So, deed in writing, basis of sharing profit and instrument along with first ROI, that means all of the above. In which of the following condition revised partnership deed should be filed? So, if there is any kind of change in constitution or remuneration or any change in interest, so the income tax department should be informed about that, and thus in all the circumstances revised deed will have to be furnished. How will the residential status of a firm be determined? Residential status. In firm there is only resident, non-resident. Ordinary, not ordinary, only in individual HUF. How will you determine? In firm you cannot check number of days. Control and management. If the control and management is wholly or partly, even if one decision is taken in India, it is going to be considered as a resident firm. Mr. X is a partner in a firm. He devotes 5 hours for working in the partnership firm and rest of the hours in a company in which he is a director. Then see, there is no quantum of how much work you should do. You are working or you are not working. It is as simple as that. And because you are devoting, though less number of hours, but still you will be considered as a working partner. Ramu partnership firm paid 6 lakh to its non-working partner as remuneration, which is authorized by deed. Book profit is 15. What will be allowable remuneration? So you start calculating. Actual 6 lakh, as per deed 6 lakh. Then you do that calculation, first 3 lakh, then balance 12 lakh into 60. That will give you 780 plus 270, something like that. Disaster, disaster, disaster. Non-working partner, the allowable remuneration is going to be 0. Now be careful. Institute can ask you the same question and write disallowed remuneration will be how much. If they ask disallowed, 0 cannot be your answer. Then you will have to give full 6 lakh is disallowed. You get marks to answer the question that they are asking, not for your knowledge. I hope you understand. So in this question, they are asking you how much is going to be allowed? 0. Mr. Ramakant Funsekar is a director of a company PQ Limited. PQ Limited is a partner of partnership firm LPG. Ramakant is also an employee of the firm and received remuneration of 7 lakh. Book profit is 10 lakh. Allowable remuneration as deduction under PGBP to the firm is going to be how much? Listen. The remuneration is being paid to Mr. Ramakant, who is an employee of the firm. Who is the partner of the company? Mr. Ramakant is only an employee. And any remuneration paid to employee, 40B limit is not going to be applicable. And accordingly, whatever is paid to Mr. Ramakant is going to be fully allowed. Only when the payee is partner, the limit will be applicable. Who among the following are eligible to become a partner? Who can become partner? Anybody can become partner. Nothing great about that. Who can become partner? Anybody. State whether true or false. Brought forward business loss will not be deducted. True, because what is book profit calculation under 40B? Only income under PGBP. Under 40B, it is only going to be income under PGBP. The PGBP income will be your book profit. So, losses are not going to be adjusted. A and B entered into partnership agreement on 1/4/20. As per the deed, each of them is entitled to a salary of 2000. So, deed is mentioned. On 1/8, they executed a supplementary deed by which they increased the remuneration to 3000. So, they have changed the deed with retrospective effect. But as per deduction, you will get 3000 from which date? Like that, you can change your retrospective deeds in 1961, 1980. You can change from any date. So, if you are changing it from 1st August, you may be giving it retrospective effect to pay to the partners. But for the purpose of deduction, the effect will be given from the day when you actually amend the deed. If an individual is a partner in a firm in a representative capacity and not in his personal capacity, then interest paid by the firm to such individual in his personal capacity. So, you are not partner in personal capacity. HUF is partner, I am only representing the HUF. And interest paid to me in personal capacity is going to be fully allowable because the limit of 40B will not be applicable. According to 40B, interest at 12% is allowed as a deduction. This interest should be obviously simple interest. Anywhere in income tax, we don't have the concept of compound interest. Remuneration and interest received by partners of a partnership firm will be taxable under, subject to the deductions, obviously, will be taxable under PGBP. Anything that you get from your firm is your business income. Salary received by working partner of a firm as per 40B. So, firm has taken deduction. So, it will be taxable. The name is salary, but taxable under PGBP because name is not relevant. The relation payer-payee are not employer-employee, so it cannot be salary. Salary received by a sleeping partner of a partnership firm as per 40B will be taxable. Sleeping partner. When firm will not get deduction, if the firm is not getting deduction, then for the partner it will not be taxable. If interest is paid to an individual partner who is not a representative partner, to an individual, and interest received by him on behalf of another person, then such interest will be, so he is not receiving interest for himself, he is receiving on behalf of someone else, and therefore the payee is not partner, it is a third person, and when the payee is third person, once again fully allowable. If partnership firm incurs any loss, who is eligible? Partnership firm is a separate distinct legal entity. This is not investment fund that will be passed through. It is a different assessee, and therefore whatever is the loss, firm will be eligible. If remuneration paid to partner is disallowed for the firm, then for the partner, if firm will not get deduction, then for the partner it will not be taxable. Or shall I say that partner will pay tax only on the amount which was allowed as a deduction to the firm. In case of dissolution of a firm, who will be responsible? Partner who started the firm, all partners, persons who were partner at the time of dissolution or discontinuance as the dissolved firm will be deemed to be in existence. Section 189, till the time you don't pay all your outstanding dues, the dissolved firm will be deemed to be in existence. In case of AOP, so some questions on AOP are also there. AOP, normally the rate of taxes, slabs, same as individual, but just one small piece of additional information I would like to give you. In case of AOP, if the shares of members are not known, so we don't know what is the sharing percentage, then AOP will pay tax at MMR. So normally it is slabs, but if the shares are unknown, MMR. If the shares are known and any of the individual partner has earned income exceeding basic exemption limit, more than 250, then also MMR. So AOP normally will pay tax at slabs. Under two circumstances, AOP will pay at MMR. If the shares are not known, or if the shares are known and any of the individual partner has earned more than 250, then in two cases, the tax rate of AOP will change to MMR. Obviously, the members will get that benefit under 86, they don't have to pay tax. So, in case of AOP, if the share is not known, then instead of slab, the rate will change to maximum marginal rate. If the share is not known, or if any of the partner is earning more than the basic exemption limit, then in that case the AOP will pay tax at maximum marginal rate. Question 24. Khan is an AOP in which Salman and Amir Khan are members. Their shares are known. So this time the shares are known. Total income excluding share from AOP of Salman is 260 and Amir is 250. So is there any individual member whose income is exceeding 250? Yes. Salman, always creating problems everywhere. So the total income of the AOP is 550. Once any of the individual members exceed 250, that means can I say MMR? And MMR means 550 will be taxable at 42.744%. On 550, when we apply 42.744, what do we get? $235,092, and that is your option B. 235,092. Under which of the condition AOP is not required to pay MMR? If individual is not known, then they are required to pay MMR. Individual is known and total income of any member exceeds basic exemption, then also MMR. Shared known and it does not exceed basic exemption, then in that case the AOP not required to pay MMR. Then slab rate, as we have studied, will be applicable. If AOP has not paid tax on its total income, share from AOP in the hands of the member. If AOP pays tax, then member will not pay tax. But if the AOP has not paid tax, then the member has to pay tax. State whether true or false. If an AOP has paid at MMR, then member's share will be exempt. Yes, if the AOP pays at MMR, once the AOP pays tax, then for the member not taxable. BN Associates is a firm consisting of two partners, B and N. Share are 60 and 40 respectively. For the current year, the income is 6 lakh. B and N's income other than income from firm, individual income is 1 lakh. Calculate the income tax to be paid by B. So ignore the income of N. B income is 1 lakh plus he will also get 60% share from the firm. No, but yes, that share from the firm is going to be exempt. This has not to be calculated anywhere because firm has already paid tax. So for the partner it will be exempt. So the partner, the taxable income is going to remain at 1 lakh, and if it is 1 lakh, then obviously below basic exemption limit, no need to pay any tax. State whether true or false. If there is a mutual concern, ordinarily there should not be any tax on. So obviously, if I remove some money from my trouser pocket to my shirt, or t-shirt does not have pocket, but if I put it, I cannot say t-shirt account debit to trouser account being money paid. So obviously there cannot be any profit in mutual. You cannot earn. Mutual means dealing with yourself. You cannot make profits by dealing with yourself. In case of a club, any surplus accruing to a member club from subscription and charges for various conveniences paid by member, and this is the logic that we are using, what we studied in the previous question. It will not be an income. It is like few people. It's like supposingly you all are 4 or 5 friends. You all decide to make a bag, a kitty bag, and everybody is contributing 1000 rupee from there, and then you all go for a picnic, and in that picnic you spend money, and after spending money some income is left in that bag that you made, where everybody has contributed some money. It is not a profit of anybody, it is your contribution. You used it and the balance is remaining. Some people take the balance home. It is not an income. There cannot be any profit by such kind of mutual activities. Transfer fees received by cooperative society. Whenever there is name transfer in housing societies, societies take some fees. And we have a couple of case laws, Venkatesh Society, Sindh Cooperative Society, that these incomes are not going to be taxable. For the society, these incomes are not going to be taxable, because it was held in the case laws that these incomes are going to be exempt. So the incomes are going to be exempt. In case of transfer of capital asset by partner to firm, sale consideration will be the value recorded in books of accounts. For partner to firm, 45(3) value recorded. But question 33, transfer of capital asset by firm to partner, then in that case it is going to be fair market value. Partner to firm, value recorded, firm to partner, fair market value. In case a firm has capital gains, will the firm get 111A, 112, 112A? Yes, firm is eligible. Normally basic tax is 30, but special rate is going to be applicable under all circumstances. In case a firm violates the conditions of 184, section 185, conditions violated, you are still a firm, only for one purpose you will become AOP, that you will not get any 40B deduction. So it will be considered as a firm for all provisions? No. As AOP for all provisions? No. Considered as a firm for all provisions, but AOP for the limited purpose of disallowing 40B. 40B deduction is not going to be available. Firm consisting of 3 partners has changed PSR from 2:2:1 to equal. What is this? Whenever there is change in PSR, or incoming and outgoing partner, at least one old partner continues, then it will become change in constitution. In case of change in constitution, old firm and new firm are considered as same firm, and therefore there is going to be only a single assessment. In one assessment only we will cover. In case of succession, there will be on the firm. Succession means they are considered as 2 firms. So 2 assessments, one on the predecessor, one on the successor. In case of a firm, liability of tax payment is on whom? Firm is an artificial person. So on whom? Partner. Which partner? Joint and several. Deceased partner legal hai, maximum liability. Inheritance including LLP, except if the LLP partner proves that there was no misconduct on my part, then he will be absolved. Yes or no? So there is no joint and several liability in LLP. Absolutely rubbish. LLP also has got joint and several liability. In case of a firm after dissolution, liability of payment of tax will be on whom? All partners with respect to asset taken over to that extent? No. No need to pay tax. Enjoy yourself. That partner who continues the business? No. All partners joint and several, as the dissolved firm will be deemed to be in existence. Till the time you don't pay off your dues, you will be deemed to be in existence. If a partner of LLP proves that liability is not due to negligence on his part, then he shall be absolved from joint and several responsibility. That is right, but let's read the other option. He is still liable? No. Liable to the, he is not liable. He is still liable? No, he is not liable. He will be absolved provided he is able to prove. If he is not able to prove, there is joint and several. Don't forget. Only if you are able to prove, you will be absolved. Otherwise, there is joint and several liability. If a partner of a normal firm proves that liability is not due to negligence, he is still liable along with the other partner. So this facility is available only to partner of LLP. This facility is not available to partner of a normal partnership firm. Any income received after dissolution of the firm, section 176. After dissolution, it will be taxable for whom? Taxable for the receiving partner. Income after dissolution will be taxable for the receiving partner. Any income received after dissolution of firm shall be taxable for the receiving partner where now there is no business, and if there is no business, it will be taxable under IFOS. Interest under section 40B will be allowed if paid to whom? Active or sleeping? Interest is allowed if paid to both. Only in remuneration the restriction is allowed only if paid to a working partner. Maximum interest for deduction under 40B is 12% simple, 12% compound, 15 is not the rate, and 12% is simple interest. So allowable is going to be 12% simple interest. Interest deduction under 40B will be what? Actual interest, amount by deed, 12% per annum simple interest out of the three, whichever is lower. A firm can pay maximum 12% interest to partners. You can pay whatever you want, a firm will get deduction. Next question will solve your doubt. The deduction will be restricted to 12%. There is no problem on payment. The deduction will be restricted to 12%. Remuneration under section 40B will be allowed if paid to. Remuneration will be allowed if paid to. For interest you can pay to both, but remuneration will be allowed only if paid to active partner. Any remuneration paid to sleeping partner, non-active partner, not allowed. Remuneration deduction for a firm with book loss will be what? Actual, amount as per deed. Don't give 150 as the direct answer. It is the third limit. Actual deed or 150, whichever is lower. A firm having book profit of 8 lakh this time has paid remuneration of 4 lakh to working partner, 2 lakh to disaster. Remuneration to sleeping partner, ignore altogether. What will be the deduction? Actual 4 lakh, which is also as per deed. So actual and deed I am merging in one amount. But what is the third thing? First 3 lakh, 90%, and balance 5 lakh, 60%. So that's total of 570. 4 or 570, whichever is lower. 4 lakh, 570, whichever is low. I hope you know the limits. Actual 4 lakh, as per deed 4 lakh, and third is the limit. If it is book loss, it will be 1 lakh 50. But if it is book profit, it will be first 3 lakh 90, balance 60. Here it is going to be that 270 plus 5 lakh into 60, that's 3 lakh, 5 lakh 70. 270 plus 5 lakh here, 3 lakh into 90%, that is 270, and 5 lakh into 60, that is 3 lakh, total of 570 or 4 lakh, whichever is lower. Firm having book profit of 8 lakh has paid remuneration as per deed 6 lakh this time to working. Sleep in, again ignore, again ignore. So this time it is going to be 6 lakh or, but don't give 6 directly as your answer, because this time 570 becomes the lower of the two, and therefore 570 is going to become your answer. Firm having a book loss of 8 lakh has paid remuneration of 60. Just because it is a loss, like an idiot, don't choose 150. It is always going to be whichever is lowest. So actually 60, as per deed is also 60, and 150, lowest is going to be 60. It is whichever is lowest. 150 is only your third limit. Firm having a book loss of 8 lakh under section 40B has per deed paid remuneration of 260. So now this time it is going to be 260 or 150. 260 or 150. In that 150 is the lowest. So 150 is going to become your answer. In case of dissolution of firm and discontinuance of business, that was the case law of Ala firm. Stock has to be valued at NRV. Supreme Court said so. But now we know, once ICDS 2 has come into picture, whether business continues or discontinue, stock valuation will always take place at NRV. In case of dissolution, business being continued by an individual partner, even the Supreme Court judgment of Shakti Trading Company is overruled. In both cases, now stock valuation is always going to be at net realizable value. Swift Traders is a partnership firm which furnishes the following figures. It has dissatisfied the conditions enumerated under section 184. Business income before deduction of salary and interest to partners is 4 lakh 50. Interest to partner at 18%, 1 lakh 10. Salary to working partner 272. Compute the taxable income. If you end up doing 450 minus within the limit of 40B, within the limit, that will mark the beginning of your end. That will strike with full energy and power. And बहुत भारी करंट लगेगा भाई. सुन लो. The firm has failed to satisfy 184 conditions, and failure to satisfy conditions of 184 will make 40B disallowed. And if 40B is disallowed, then 450, which is your profit before giving that deduction, also will become your answer because you have not fulfilled condition. If you fulfill condition, then within the limit we could have given the deduction. But conditions not fulfilled, 450 is your answer. Swift Traders is a partnership firm which furnishes the following figure. This time it has satisfied the conditions given under section 184. Business income before deduction of salary and interest to partners 450, same amount. Interest to partner at 18% is 1,10,000 and salary to working partner 272. First thing, this time 450 will not be the answer because we are going to get our deduction. Last time we were not eligible for deduction, but this time we will get our deduction. First of all, that is clear. While giving deduction, observe carefully, only the deduction is remaining. So by mistake, don't add 110 or 272 by saying add as per books less as per tax. If you observe, the add as per books part is already done in 450. This is before deduction, that means only the less part is left. In other words, 450 minus interest allowed, minus remuneration allowed, that's your final answer. The add part is already done, only deduction is left. Let us see how we will be doing this. Income before deduction given to us at 450, directly subtract interest. If 18% is 1,10,000, then 12%, which is going to be lower, 73,333. This is, by the way, our textbook sum also. 376,667 will be your book profit because only remuneration is remaining. And what is the remuneration allowed? Though they have paid 272, but you also check as per 40B. First 3 lakh, 90%. Balance 76,667, 60%. That total will become 316, but whichever is lower. So 272 from 376, when we subtract 272, 104 is going to become our answer. 104,667 is going to become our answer. So when the conditions are fulfilled, we do get deduction. That's our answer. Question number 61. In Manikchand partnership firm, Popatlal is one of the partners whose capital is 1 lakh in the firm. Firm gave interest on capital at 30% and he received 30,000. What is taxability? Firm gave 30%, but firm will get deduction only of 12%, 12,000. 1 lakh into 30%, 30 is paid. But deduction for the firm will be only 12. So for Popatlal, only 12 will be taxable to the extent allowed as a deduction. And therefore 18 is exempt. And whatever is taxable, it will be taxable as business income. 12 will be taxable as business income, 18 will be exempt. Mrs. A, wife of Mr. B. What kind of exchange offer is going on? I don't know. But if the question says so, so be it. Mrs. A is wife of Mr. B. There must be some problem with Mr. B only. Or Mr. A maybe. Is a partner, God knows. Let's focus. Is a partner in the firm. She is a partner. Her capital contribution 5 lakh to the firm as on 1/4/20 included 3 lakh contributed out of gift from Mr. B, who is her husband. So the total capital given by her in the business is 5 lakh. But that includes 3 lakh of her husband. So 2 lakh from own sources, 3 lakh from husband. That's the 5 lakh. The firm paid interest on capital of 60,000 and share of profit 50,000 during the year. Entire interest has been allowed. That means firm has taken deduction. If firm has taken deduction, that means this will be taxable for the receiver. But wait, this is partnership combined with clubbing. If 60 is taxable for the receiver, for the wife it is only going to be 40% because her contribution was only 2 lakh. 3 lakh, that is 60%, and that 60,000 into 60% will be clubbed in the hands of Mr. B, and share of profit anyways is going to be exempt. So share of profit exempt and interest will be proportionately 60% clubbed in the hands of husband, only 40%, 24,000 will be taxable for the wife. Which of the following statement is correct? Share of profit is exempt, but interest on capital is taxable. Not fully, so wrong. Share of profit is exempt. Interest of 40 is includable for B and 20 for the wife. Wrong. Share of profit is exempt and 36/24, which is the ratio of 60/40, is going to be taxable for the husband and wife, clubbing and no clubbing respectively. Obviously, no need to read also. It is going to be wrong. You can read. Actually, going by the rule, you should always read all the options. But as we have discussed, it's a calculation based sum. You can directly compute and give your answer. Presumptive taxation under section 44 AD. 44 AD. Resident individual, resident HUF, resident firm, excluding LLP. So available only to resident firms. Presumptive taxation under 44 AD is applicable only to normal firm, not available to LLP, only available to normal firm. Presumptive taxation 44 ADA, there is no problem. You have to be resident. You can be normal firm, LLP, anything. ADA is available to both, but AD is available only to resident firm, excluding LLP. Only one place of difference between normal firm and LLP. LLP will not get 44 AD. But let me be clear, I have never taught you that ADA will not be available. AD will not be available, ADA will be available. Loss of an outgoing partner other than UAD shall be carried forward. For a partnership firm lapse, an individual partner also no carry forward, because share of profit is exempt, then loss also you will not get. In other words, that loss will lapse. Unabsorbed depreciation of an outgoing partner shall be carried forward by whom? Loss will lapse, but unabsorbed depreciation, because partner is going, the asset is with us only, and therefore UAD will be carried forward by the firm. Only the loss will lapse. Now we have a case study based MCQ. It was from one of the past mock test papers of ICAI. On the basis of the given facts, answer the question 68 to 71. So 68, 69, 70, 71, 4 questions. LPG, a partnership firm, is engaged in the business of manufacturing of garments. It furnishes you the following data. Gross turnover is 2 crore 55 lakh. Expenses 2 crore 36 lakh. Interest to partners is 540, but that includes 120 paid to Gopal for loan given by HUF. HUF is not the partner. Who are the partners? Mr. J, who is getting 30,000 per month as salary, Gopal 28,000 per month, and Madhav 16,000 per month. So this will, I think, amount to 360. This will be total, I am saying, for the year, because it is per month, and 16 into 12 is 192. So if you add the 3 of them, you can verify that the total is 888. But I want to first make you understand that the partners are Jay, Gopal and Madhav, and the loan given by Gopal HUF is not to partners. So total interest is 540, but in this, partners are paid only 420 and other people are paid 120. That is making your 540, no? The interest paid to partner is only 420, interest paid to others is 120, and that's your total of 540. Partners share the profit and losses equally. During 1920, that means last year, firm had incurred a business loss of 3 lakh and depreciation of 150. So they have given you information about brought forward losses, total amounting to 450, including 3 lakh and 150 respectively. On 1/4/20, that's the beginning of the year, Mr. Jayesh, a partner, died and his legal heir, Mr. Jay, got admitted. So one died, but his legal heir is there. So Jay is basically, the legal heir is continuing as inheritance. He is continuing the share of his father. So at least the loss which pertains, last year the loss was 3 lakh, which must have included share of Mr. Jayesh. But instead of Mr. Jayesh, his legal heir is continuing. In case of inheritance, that loss of Mr. Jayesh can be continued by Jay, who has joined the firm. Another partner, Mr. Raj, also retired on the same date. So last year we had Jayesh, Gopal, Madhav and Raj. In place of Jayesh, Jay has joined, but Mr. Raj has retired. What impact it will make? Whenever a partner leaves, the loss pertaining to that partner, excluding UAD, this you will ignore. This 150 fully you can bring forward and adjust. But in this total 3 lakh, the loss of Mr. Raj. Last year there were 4 partners. Jayesh is continuing in the form of legal head Jay. Remaining 2 are also continuing, Gopal and Madhav. So Mr. Raj has left. So basically this is going to be 75,000 each, 3 lakh divided by 4, and in which 75,000 will lapse because he has left. So out of 4 partners last year, 1 has left. So that 75,000 will lapse and only 225 can be adjusted. Now because loss of an outgoing partner, Mr. Raj, Jayesh has gone, but legal heir is continuing as inheritance. So only 75 will lapse, and that rule is not applicable to UAD. Mr. Madhav is not actively engaged in conducting the affairs of the business, while Jay and Gopal are actively. So basically this remuneration will be fully disallowed, and Jay and Gopal 336, 360 within the limits of 40B will be allowed. Interest at 16% per annum for the first time on partner's capital was paid from 1st July. So this interest, we are only talking about the partner's capital interest. Other interest cannot be covered here. Other interest 120 is separate. We are talking about partner's interest. Was paid at 16%. So this 420 is 16% paid from July. This will help us to find out capital. Whatever is the total capital contributed into 16% from July means 9 months amounts to 420. that will help us find out the capital so that we can apply the limit to identify how much is going to be the 12%. If 16% is this, then 12% per annum is going to be how much? The clause for the same was, however, entered in the deed on 1st January. Oh, we are paying from July, but the deed was authorized in Jan, and accordingly, when we calculate as per partnership deed and when we calculate the other limits, when we do 12% per annum simple interest, 12% is per annum. The interest allowed will be only for 3 months. I will show you everything how the calculation works. Salary paid to partner is authorized by the deed since inception. So these amounts are as per deed. Only thing is that sleeping partner Madhav you have to remove. So actual you will take 696, as per deed also 696. Just you have to apply that 40B limit of book profit related amount and identify how much will be the remuneration allowed. But interest calculation requires deep knowledge. You need to identify the capital on the basis of data given. We will do that in working, don't worry. Mr. Gopal relinquished his title in a land in the name of LPG. So partner has transferred asset to firm for 18 lakh, which was duly recorded in books of accounts. So actual consideration 18 lakh, cost for the firm 18 lakh, selling price for the partner 18 lakh. Stamp duty value irrelevant because partner to firm we will be taking the book value. Firm to partner if we ever take, we will take the fair market value. From the information given above, choose the most appropriate answer. 68, 69, 70, 71. 4 questions. First question, what would be the interest expense that the firm can claim as deduction? What would be the interest expense that the firm can claim as deduction? What would be the interest expense? Let's see. First, we have to find out the interest allowed as per 40B. Once we compute that effectively, efficiently, correctly, properly and perfectly, then we will decide how to give this particular answer. If you carefully observe, question has not given you capital. Question is saying 16% was paid from July to March. That means let's do it in the form of an equation. First of all, we are only talking about the partnership related interest currently. Capital into 16% into 9 by 12 because we paid from July to March will be 420. Sir, how 420? Because total interest is 540. But that includes the other interest also. So we are taking only the partnership related interest. So that will be only 420. 540 minus 120. So capital into 16% into 9 by 12 is 420. If we simplify the equation, can I say 420 and we are taking the other things on the opposite side. So multiply by 12 divide by 9 and this is 16%, that amounts to 16 by 100. So you multiply by 100 divide by 16. Firstly, you will get your capital of rupees 35 lakh. Capital is rupees 35 lakh. So the partner's contribution in the form of capital is 35 lakh and now this 35 lakh will help us to identify how much is going to be the allowable interest. What are the limits? Actual as per deed and 12% per annum. Actual interest 420. Sir, again and again I am saying you are understanding how 420, 540 is total, but we are removing the HUF because it is not the partner. So remove that 120. We are strictly talking about the interest paid to partners, which is 420. So capital contributed at 16% we have paid from July and accordingly we got 420. So by reverse working of the equation, we got the capital at 35 lakh. Actual interest 420. As per deed, deed authorizes 16% from January. So 35 lakh, 16% from January. That will be your answer as per the deed. As per deed, that will be your answer. But the third limit, which is the 40B limit, one thing extra that you need to learn here, that 12% per annum is simple interest. 12% is simple interest per annum. And here because the deed have authorized interest only for 3 months, so when we give 35 lakh for 12%, 12% will be per annum. Deed has authorized only for 3 months and thus according to 40B, your answer is going to be only 105. As per 40B, your answer is only going to be 105. So actual 420, how did we get 420? 540 minus 120. As per deed, for that we computed capital. How did we get the capital? By back calculation. If capital into 16% for 9 months is 420, then by back calculation, we got the capital. And we got 16% as per deed for 3 months, but 12% is the maximum allowed, and it will be allowed for the authorized period of 3 months. 105. And 105 is also, I think, one of the options which can bring some students to conclusion. Yeah, 105, 105, 105, yeah. गधेड़ा गधेड़ा पागल मर गया, पूरी तरह से मर गया. इतना गंदा गेम इंस्टीट्यूट ने खेला ना आपके साथ, आपको पता. देखो इन अ सब्जेक्ट लाइक इसका वी नो दैट वी डोंट नो एनीथिंग. डायरेक्ट टेक्स्ट में ऐसा हमको लगता है कि हमको सब आता है, लेकिन खाली लगता है. 105 वो इंटरेस्ट है जो एज पर 40B अलाउड है. मतलब ये 420 नहीं बनेगा, ये 105 बनेगा. मैक्सिमम उतना अलाउड फॉर टैक्स पर्पसेस. पीएनएल में कुछ भी लिखो, बट भाई साहब ये 120 भी तो अलाउड है. इन्होंने आपको पूछा क्या है? What would be the interest expense that we can claim? इन्होंने आपको ये नहीं बोला है. They are not asking partner. Paid to partner interest how much allowed? Paid to partner 105. These are the calculations. 3 limits, whichever is lowest. To partner 105. But then this 120 is also there, no? And the total interest expense includes 105 and 120 both. 105 plus 120, 225. Those memes come now. सही खेल गया. Yes, your calculation of as per partnership, that derivation of the amount of capital was a little difficult. And then this, that if 12% we are restricting, but that's per annum, so we have to give to the deed period. And you may get till year, which is also one of the options. Look at how they have played. They have given that as an option. But then 120 is also allowed. They are asking interest expense. They are not asking how much interest paid to partner will be allowed. Total interest includes 120. Total being 225. Business loss and UAD allowed to be set off while computing. We already discussed UAD full 150 will be allowed. So these two are gone. And in business loss, because one of the partners have left, so out of 3 lakh only 225 will be allowed, and accordingly this is going to be this is easy. So first was a very tricky question, mainly about what they asked here. Second was very easy. What would be the total income of the firm for EY 21-22? Now see, total income means we have calculated the allowable interest, but now this answer will automatically require you to also calculate allowable remuneration, because we'll calculate allowable interest, which we know is as per 40B it is 105. The remaining 120 debited to PNL and allowed, so you don't need to adjust. So for interest the adjustment is only going to be add 420 and less 105. For interest the adjustment is going to be add 420 less 105. The remaining 120 is allowed and debited. It is a part of this 225, but we don't have to do any adjustment in computation. Remuneration add as per books 888 less as per tax, that will give us PGBP. PUBG. They are asking total income. Come here. Net profit as per profit and loss account 4,72,000. Add interest as per profit and loss account and remuneration at once, you add both of them, and only the one paid to partner, because the other interest is anyways going to be fully allowed. So even if you add 120, later that 120 will be fully allowed. You have to restrict only 420 to 105. Other 120 was allowed, and in total interest expense also 105 plus 120 we have allowed. So that you don't need to adjust. That will become your PGBP before your deductions. In that interest allowed. Now see, sir, why you are saying only 105? Because 120 I have not added, so I don't need to minus. In total deduction it is there. But here if I add, then I will less it. No. And why will I add? Because I am doing only the 40B adjustments here. In this question, you had to calculate total interest. But here now I am doing only 40B adjustment. So add only relating to 40B and less relating to 40B. That's your book profit. What is your remuneration allowed? Actual and deed, you will take only Jay and Gopal because Madhav is sleeping partner. 696, and then on your book profit first 3 lakh 90%, balance 60%. Anyways, it is higher only. So this will be your allowable remuneration. That will become your PGBP, and we have already decided the brought forward losses. When we adjust our brought forward losses, 6,04,000 will become our answer. 6,04,000 after adjusting our brought forward losses. Are we clear on this? Excellent. And what would be the capital gains in the hands of LPG, assuming that Land acquired from Gopal. Land acquired from Gopal. From Gopal we had acquired the land at what price? 18 lakh rupees. Oh, we paid 18 lakh. Was sold on 28 February for 25 lakh to Mr. Jack. Make this 26 please. Make this 26. 26. Small correction, make it 26 please. Okay, small correction, make it 26. Fair market value and stamp duty value are 30 and 28 respectively. See, whenever a partnership firm transfers to partner, no, at that time FMV is relevant, otherwise not relevant. When it is selling in the market, you have to compare actual or actual or stamp duty value, whichever is higher, actual or stamp duty value, whichever is higher, but before you apply whichever is higher rule, do we all remember? That is why I told you to watch revision amendment lecture first. Do we all remember that if the difference is up to 10% of actual, so 26 lakh is your actual, 10% is 260, 260 will make it 2880, the difference is within the range, then your actual only will be taken as your sale consideration. So if it was 25, no, then our sale consideration will become 28 because the difference is more than 10%, and 10% has to be checked on actual. Earlier it was 5%, now there is an amendment, it will be 10%. But because it is 26, that means 28 is within 10% range, and if it is within 10% range, then sale consideration will become 26, cost was 18, 26 minus 18, 8 lakh is going to become your taxable capital gain. The capital gain will be 8 lakh. So supposingly actual was 25, then 28 will become our answer, and 28 minus 18, then 10 will become the capital gain, and that is why I made you change the question. So in the question we will make it 26, and then this comes within 10% range, the difference, and because of that this will become selling price, 18 was the cost price, 8 lakh will become your capital gain. That was your case study based, the 68, 69, 70, 71. Messrs AB Associates is an AOP consisting of two members A and B, both sharing ratio of 1:1. Net profit as per PNL for the year ended is 5 lakh and expenses 40,000 to debited are disallowed. So 5 lakh plus disallowed expense of 40,000. Other income of A and B other than the income from AOP are 230 and 260. That means one of the partners has got, even if the shares are known, the partner has got more than basic exemption. While calculating total income and tax liability of A and B, which of the following statements are correct? AOP will pay tax at MMR because there is income more than basic exemption. And if AOP is paying tax at MMR, that means for the partners it will be exempt. Share of income from AOP is included in the respective members. No, wrong. So A and D become wrong already. Share of income from AOP is not included. Correct statement. Both members are eligible for rebate. Yes, because AOP has paid tax, then the member will not pay tax. Tax liability of both A and B is nil. Yes, because 230, 260. A is already below the basic exemption limit. B, though above the basic exemption limit, because of rebate, anyways it is going to become 0. Tax liability of A is nil and B is 19. No, not at all. Both of them is 0. Accordingly, 234 are in your option B, and thus for your 72, your answer is going to be B. That was your chapter assessment of partnership firm from your episode 3, end of episode 3. Now we will party. Let me think about some rhyming word for episode 4. We'll dance on the floor. And recorded on the same day as episode 2. I have different pairs of clothes, but recorded on the same day because I am a little busy, and these episodes will come to you one by one. Stay tuned, stay connected, get an exemption. Lots of love. Thank you very much.